Afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Uttam Chaskar, faculty in the Department of Instrumentation and Control, College of Engineering, Pune. In today's session, I'm going to discuss about digital blood pressure measurement. How do we design, develop, and test the blood pressure meter? And what are the challenges with current digital blood pressure measurement techniques? What are the limitations of that? And how we can eliminate the issues of using current methods which is available for measurement of blood pressure. And along with me, my student Nishigandha Agam is also, she's working on cuffless BP measurement, and she has used various machine learning tool algorithm for her work. So her work is majorly based upon ECG and PCG used for the ECG and PCG used for the measurement of blood pressure. Quickly, I'll give you some idea about what are the real challenges when it comes to measurement of blood pressure. Blood pressure is defined as what? The amount of pressure exerted by the blood flow onto the walls of the blood vessels. As far as blood pressure is concerned, both the conditions are very, very dangerous. Either the blood pressure is either low, very low, or very high. Whenever the blood pressure is very low, we call as the patient is suffering from hypotension, and another case is whenever the person is suffering from very high blood pressure, it's called as hypertension. If the patient blood pressure is normal, we call as a normotension, and so on. So what are the figure that you can see in this particular site? I have picked up from Wikipedia, and I have also mentioned the various sources from where I have picked up the materials. So look at the today's blood pressure measurement technique. In this slide, you can see a cuff. You can see here as a cuff. And in order to measure blood pressure, we also need to have some kind of stethoscope. The method that which is available for measurement of BP is manual, as well as some of them are automatic. In today's presentation, I'll be discussing about the problem statement. So whenever we are designing any kind of instrument or device, we should be able to define the problem clearly. Then once we define the problem or the problem that we are trying to solve, we try to gather the information required in order to solve that problem. So once we have gathered all the information, next approach is we are following the design steps. So designs involve various kinds of electronic circuit, mechanical circuits, some kind of power modules, and so on. Once we have designed, we try to develop the actual prototype. So once we have developed or created a prototype, we try to validate that prototype. And while validating the prototype, what are the errors which occurs during testing and validation? What are the possible errors which may occur, and how can we eliminate? So whenever we are working on any kind of project, it involves different steps. First step is, we already mentioned, like we should have some kind of idea. So based upon that idea, we should be able to create a proof of principle. After proof of principle, we try to prove a proof of concept. And from proof of concept to we go for product, right? So, and from the product, when it comes to launching that product in the marketplace, we try to comply with some kind of regulation. So this is the complete spectrum for designing of various kinds of medical instrument, not only medical instruments, as well as other instruments as well. So this is the typical problem statement for designing and development of digital blood pressure meter. So here we can say to develop a user-friendly digital device which automatically measure, display, and record the blood pressure of human being for clinical as well as home application. So the device should be user-friendly. That is the requirement. Unless and until it is user-friendly, we cannot use it for home applications. So these are the different blood pressure measurement devices available in the marketplace. So blood pressure devices can be categorized into two types. First is called the non-invasive measurement devices. So look at non-invasive measurement devices is also called as the indirect measurement of blood pressure. Second is called as the invasive. So in case of invasive, we are trying to insert something into inside of the body. That's called as the invasive measurement. And invasive could be either, it can be at extravascular level or it can be at intravascular level. So normal recommendation is what? We should not really go for invasive methods. But there are certain situations we also need to measure the blood pressure in the chambers of the heart, which is the invasive pressure or direct measurement technique, you can say. The common blood pressure measurement techniques which is used in today's practice is what? Non-invasive, or it's called the indirect blood pressure measurement technique. So as far as the non-invasive method is concerned, which includes the manual measurement as well as automatic, right? So manual, or we can have automatic or semi-automatic blood pressure meter. As far as the manual or analog non-invasive method is concerned, we can use either mercury sphygmomanometer, or we can use as aneroid sphygmomanometer. So both are manual method. So aneroid sphygmomanometers involve some kind of pressure gauge, right? Whereas mercury manometer, sphygmomanometer involve some kind of mercury gauge and so on. So this is the sphygmomanometer is the common technique used today, but it requires the clinician's intervention. So it is also this method has also got some kind of drawbacks. Drawbacks involves unless and until the person hearing ability is good, will not be able to get the accurate measurement. Another technique is called as the automatic or electronic measurement technique. Electronic measurement technique is based upon it. It is like semi-automated cuff. So non-invasive method measurement techniques based upon the curve. We need to use some kind of curve in order to measure the blood. Semi-automatic curve, or it can be automated curve. And the newer research that we are talking about, cuffless, right? Cuffless techniques which can be used for mobile application and so on. So as far as the automatic cuff BP measurement is concerned, we may be interested in taking the reading for only one time, or we can take the reading after every regular interval of time, and then you can take average in order to get the corresponding reading. So as far as the cuffless techniques is concerned, we are trying to eliminate the issues associated with the cuff. Look at the method which is used for measurement of BP, which is based upon cuff. Whenever we are using a curve, we need to wrap around the arm, and we push the air into that curve, and we try to constrict the brachial artery, which is a painful process, and which also causes some kind of discomfort to a patient or maybe a subject. So even the cuff-based method cannot be recommended for continuous measurement. It can be used only for intermittent measurement. And there are certain guidelines using curve-based method, how many times we can take a measurement for blood pressure. There's a limitation. In a day or 24 hours duration, we can take the blood pressure measurement using curve-based method, maybe for 3 or 4 times in a day. But if we have some kind of techniques where we can eliminate curve, so that it would be comfortable for the patient, right, in order to measure the blood pressure. So whenever we are trying to design this particular blood pressure meter, we need to gather the information requirement, right? So requirement for blood pressure involves functional requirement. It also involves some kind of design requirement, usability requirement, or performance requirement, installation requirement, right, and so on. So I have jotted down some of the requirement for designing of blood pressure meter. The function requirement shall involve, it should be based upon curve, and the method used is called the oscillometric method. There are two methods especially used in order to measure the blood pressure. One is the oscillatory. Oscillation means we are trying to measure, we are listening to the human heart using some kind of hearing devices, or you can say some kind of microphones, or we can use a human ear for that. Or it should have automatic inflation, right? So look at the sphygmomanometer. We need to wrap a cuff around the arm, and then we try to push the air into this. We are trying to inflate the cuff, and for inflating the cuff, we can use a bulb, or it's called as a balloon. It's in automatic devices, we call it a pump and so on. And it should be able to measure systolic and diastolic pressure. So when we talk about measurement of BP, there are two kinds of pressures associated with it. One is called as a systolic pressure. Second is called as a diastolic pressure. Systolic means whenever the heart is pumping the blood, right? And diastolic is whenever the heart is relaxing, which is same as the pressure between two heart successive beats So the typical value for blood pressures are specified as 120/80. 120 is normally specified as systolic and 80 is called as a diastolic. So normal range plus or minus 20 is considered as a normal range, but above of that or below of that, we call it as a hypotension as well as hypertension. And then in case of hypertension, if the values are above 160, 180, we also categorize into different grades. So the device that we are designing, it should be able to measure the pressure between 40 millimeter of Hg to 250 millimeter of Hg range. And it should be also able to measure the pulse rate. We can also measure the pulse rate based upon the, you can say, BP. So the pulse rate can be measured between 40 to 180 beats per minute. It should also indicate the blood pressure, whether it's high or low, or it's a normal. And it should also able to indicate if there is any kind of irregularity in patterns when it comes to measurement of blood pressure. And that device should be able to log a data for 60 records or 60 patients. When it comes to usability requirement, it should be able to operate the cuff, which size may change from 22 to 42 centimeter. Now, whenever we are measuring the blood pressure for different age group, if you take the example of age group from 0 to 1, we call it the infant, or 1 to 5, we call it the child, and then 5 to 12, 13 to 18, 18 or 18 to 21 and above, we call it as the adult. So all these different age group needs a different kind of cuff sizes. So selection of cuff sizes, even the range of blood pressures are different for different age group that we need to consider while designing this blood pressure device. Then this device should be able to operate on a battery. Normally we specify either it can be operated on some kind of power adapter, or it can be operated on AAA or AA batteries and so on. And the weight is also one of the important factors. So it should be light in weight and it should be portable as well. Another important requirement is what? Performance requirement. It should be able to measure the blood pressure within the accuracy of plus or minus 3 millimeter of Hg, right? And pulse rate accuracy should be 5% of measurement value. So when it comes to design, I already mentioned the principle involved in the measurement of blood pressure is based upon oscillometric method. So look at this particular slide. You can see the first graph as pressure of cuff as a function of time, and second graph is oscillometric impulse, which can be detected from the pressure cuff. Now the pressure pumped into the or the air pushed into pumped into the cuff pressure may vary from 0 to 125, or it can be 180 or 220 and so on. Now look at this particular slide. In this particular look at this particular slide. This particular slide so it shows you how we have detected systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Now here in the oscillometric impulse graph, you can see this is the noisy pattern, right? Inflation and deflation. So whenever we are measuring the blood pressure, we try to push the air, we try to inflate the cuff, and while measuring this, we try to release, right? We try to release the blood airflow, or you can say air from the cuff. And there are 2 points which can be heard by human here. So whenever we are pushing the air into a cuff, we try to constrict the brachial artery, which is available in the arm. So whenever we are pushing the air, it is like constriction of the brachial artery, right? And even we feel some kind of discomfort, like it's like a feeling like a stoppage of the blood. And then slowly we try to release the air pressure from the cuff, and we try to indicate the some kind of oscillation, some kind of Korotkoff sound which can be heard. It's called as a systolic pressure. This is the point where we can hear a Korotkoff sound. It's called a systolic pressure. And whenever there is a complete cessation of sound, it's called as a diastolic pressure. Now you can see here, this is the oscillometric graph, and systolic pressure is detected at 0.5 of what are the peak value that we get in the oscillation, and diastolic is measured at 0.8 into peak value. These are the different components of a blood pressure device, right? So you can see here, we need to have a power supply, controller with display. We need to have a pressure sensor, which can measure the pressure sensor. So you can see the second picture as a pressure sensor, and pressure sensor has got different pins. So which we also need to provide some kind of signal conditioning or constant current source. Third figure you can see here as a pump. So pump can be seen here. Then you can have a leak detector, solenoid valve, and these are the cups. Cups comes with the different sizes. So leak detector, if by chance, if there is any leakage in the cup, if there is a leakage, we'll not be able to inflate the cup with appropriate pressure, and there will be the issue with the constriction of the brachial artery. Therefore, there should be some kind of mechanism to detect the leakage of the air, right? Exhaust valve is especially used for releasing the air pressure from the cup, right? DC motor pump is used for pushing the air, so it is operated on 6 volt, and the RPM is, you can say, 2000 and so on. And then we need to have some kind of controller with display. So controller could be maybe Atmega controller or PIC controller. We can use a different, but in our case, we have used Atmega controller. So this is the typical circuit, right? Circuit implemented. This is the, you can see, prototype that we have created. So you can see here the pressure sensor hole, or miniaturized air pump, the solenoid valve which is used for deflating pump, and then other picture also shows you the various components which are fitted inside of the casing of the blood pressure device. While testing this, you can see we need to have some kind of signal conditioning for pump. So we should be able to drive that. We need to have signal conditioning for you can say pressure sensor. We need to have signal conditioning or operation. We should be able to operate from some kind of controller for solenoid leak detection, as well as pushing the air into the cup. At the same time, we should have some kind of display where we should be able to display blood pressure, which is in the order of 120, which is either systolic or diastolic, as well as we can also display a pulse rate. And we can also provide a power required for different circuit element. We need to provide power for pump, or even some kind of power to a pressure sensor, solenoid valve, and so on. So this is the typical circuit design for a pressure sensor. Pressure sensor has got different terminals. You can see this is the 6-pin pressure sensor, which includes one as output, 2 as input, and then you can see 3 as output, then 5 as input, 6 as output, and so on. So this is based upon the constant current circuit, and the output of that pressure sensor is given to instrumentation amplifier. Now, look at this particular instrumentation amplifier, which has got the control over the gain. So you can see here the different resistance, like you can have R1, R gain, or you can have R2, R3. Gain of the instrumentation amplifier is given by the ratio of the resistance, like R3 by R2 into bracket 2R1 plus R gain divided by you can see R gain. So this way you can adjust the gain, and we can also get the corresponding output. Now this instrumentation amplifier provides you a lot of advantages in terms of input impedance, right? And even it has got low bias current or low offset voltage, and even the output impedance is very low. Even the power supply rejection ratio is also very low, and it has got the ability for rejecting the common mode signals. So this is the typical pressure signal, pressure sensor signal conditioning with the ADC, right? So you can see the different design parameter, and we have also created different scenario. Scenario involves checking the output of amplifier at different pressures. So we can see here the first scenario, amplifier circuit output at 0 mm of pressure. We get the corresponding output at 0.8 volt. Second scenario also 0.8, third scenario 0.8, but fourth scenario it is 0.4, and that is specified into voltage. Similarly, we should be also able to check the output of pressure sensor at highest level, that is the 300 millimeter of pressure, and we get the corresponding output voltage from output voltage as 1.5 volt. So if we change the pressure from 0 to 300, we get the change in the output voltage from 0.8 volt to 1.5 volt. So the entire, we need to calibrate the entire pressure range, pressure values for this small range. So that's a range from 0.8 volt to 1.5 volt. The kind of resolution that we get is same as 0.7 volt per 300 milligram mm of Hg and so on. Now, if you change the 1 millimeter of Hg pressure, so the output of amplifier you get, or the output of pressure sensor that we get as 0.023, which is same as 2.3 millivolt for every change, for single change for 1 millimeter pressure change. Then we also operate a power controller with the supply voltage of 3.2 volts. Here we can use the resolution of ADC as 8-bit. In second scenario, we have also changed the resolution, and in third case we have also seen we have changed the resolution of ADC as a 12-bit, and we can see how we are getting the change in the output. So in the first case, the resolution is what is for 8-bit is 0.0125, which is same as 1 upon 2 raised to n minus 1. N is nothing but the resolution. If it is 8-bit, so 1 upon 255 minus 1 multiplied by 3.2, we get the corresponding voltage as 0.0125 and so on. And the smallest pressure which can be measured using this particular pressure sensor. This is another situation where we have identified the corresponding, you can see, measurable minimum pressure. The next stage, once we have a design, we need to build or we need to create a prototype. For creating prototype, we should be able to drive air pump or pressure sensors, solenoid, lead detector, and the pressure curve. So in order to test the functionality of various sensors, pumps, drive the pump, we have used a platform called as a LabVIEW. So LabVIEW is Laboratory Virtual Instrumentation Engineering Workbench. That is the software which is available from National Instrument. And we have combined this particular tool with NI-DAC, National Instrument Data Acquisition Card, where NI has got different data acquisition modules. So we have utilized those modules in order to measure the output of sensor into this particular environment. And we have also activated pump using this particular module. So you can see here analog input 1 for pressure, or digital output for motor, or maybe for valves and so on. So in order to test this particular module, we have used this environment. So LabVIEW, along with some kind of data acquisition card, data acquisitions involved, taking input as well as providing output to the external world and driving something. And this is very good platform for prototyping purpose. This is the, you can see here that output that we get. So we have recorded the pressure oscillations in this particular LabVIEW environment. This is the output of a waveform chart in LabVIEW environment. So you can see here inflation and deflation of the curve, right, and how we get the oscillations. Now here in the first graph, you can see oscillations shown in the circle, and which can be magnified, which can be amplified, which can be zoomed or amplified, and we can measure the corresponding oscillations at 0.7 peak value, as well as you can say 0.5 peak value, and we can try to identify the systolic and diastolic pressure. So this is the typical output. Now you can see here, these are the controls available. So we have created this particular control in LabVIEW environment. LabVIEW has got two parts. One is called the front panel. Second is called a block diagram. So whatever the graph shown here is called the front panel. Now you can see here there is change in the there is a provision for changing the systolic pressure as well as diastolic pressure. We can have indicator, and these are the different graphs. These are oscillatory. We can get the impulses. We try to detect the peaks in the graph, which can be also displayed here. So once we have tested this particular module, different modules of blood pressure meter, we need to validate, right? So you can see here in this particular slide, you can see here a blood pressure simulator, and this is the arm. So in order to test the functionality of blood pressure meter, we need to use some kind of simulator. So blood pressure simulator or vital sign simulators are available from a National Instrument that we can use it. You can see here a arm with cuff, right? So even that comes, an arm arrangement comes with the different shapes and size when it comes to simulation. So this is the typical device. This is the device which is available in Flow, especially for this is called as a blood pressure simulator. This now you can see what is the pulse amplitude, what is the cuff pressure, how it is played, how do we detect the envelopes, how do we detect the peaks and so on. So this is the settings that we have. This is the input that we have provided from the simulator for a circuit. Now you can see there are different blood pressure set like 120/20, heart rate we have set at the 80, and pulse volume we have specified as 0.68. For the second case, we have changed it to 150/100 and so on. You can see here. Similarly, for third case, these are all settings. These are all you can say the blood pressure which can be set from the simulator, and we can test our entire circuitry here. You can see in the second case. In this way, you can create. So Fluke has also got a device called as a vital signs simulator. Vital signs involve blood pressure, temperature, pulse rate, ECG, your cardiac output, right? So even oxygen saturation in the blood and so on. So these are all vital signs which can be also tested or which can be also simulated using Fluke devices. So this is the typical arrangement when it comes to using devices onto a patient. So now you can see here a patient, right? Patient has got two arms, right arm and left arm. Now you can see this is the typical device which is available in the marketplace. So Omron HAME 790 IT CAN is the device which is available from Omron for measurement of blood pressure. Now you can see here the blood pressure curve here. You can see conductive fabric, and the output of this prototype devices are given to detect patient card and which can be analyzed here. Now you can see here, this is the red color shows in the arm is the brachial artery. So you can have a pressure sensor, you can have microphone. Microphone is especially used for measurement of oscillation. So you can see here oscillometric BP determination as well as oscillatory BP determination. Now you can see here whenever we are trying to deflate, right? So you can see here deflation. So whenever we are deflating the air from the cuff, you will get some kind of oscillations. So whenever we get an oscillation, it also will create whenever the blood flowing through the artery try to restore, or whenever we are pushing the air, it becomes like there's a constriction of blood flow through artery. So whenever we are releasing the pressure, we are trying to open up the constriction of the blood vessels. So whenever we are releasing the air from the cuff, we get some kind of oscillation. We get some kind of sound is called as a corotcope. And you can see the cortical sound has also got correlation with oscillometer. And then you can get the corresponding systolic and diastolic pressure, right? So you can see here the blood pressure can be changed from 0 to even 250 and so on. So by using this oscillator method, we can determine the peaks in the oscillations. Now you can see this is the increasing oscillation, and then you get a peak, and then we get a decreasing, and then you get a small sustained oscillation. So we are interested in this particular region which has got larger oscillation amplitude. So these are the output that we get in the lab environment. You can see here, right? And you get the oscillation. We can also detect the peaks and so on. So demo, I'll not spend time on showing you the demo which we have created in LabVIEW environment. Now, once we have created that, we need to validate. So these are the different, you can say, document that we can use it for validation. So remember, whenever we are creating any kind of prototype or product, the validation is most important thing. So we need to really validate our developed product with the standards which are available. So we can use various standards like 1987, 1992, 2000 US Association for Advancement of Medical Instrumentation Standard, British Hypertension Society Standard, German Hypertension League Standard, European Society of Hypertension, or a Committee for Standardization, International Organization for Standardization, Instrumentation or International Organization for Standardization. All these documents are available. You can see the link. You will get the standards also online. So whenever look at this case, various standards talks about how do we really validate a particular product. So look at the total number of participants as universal standard is what? Number of participants required, test cross curve range, measurement, reference measurement, what is the criteria for passing or what are the typical value. So these are the different standards which are used for validation. Universal standard, British Hypertension Society standard, or European Society of Hypertension. Now look at this case. In all three cases, you will find the number of participants are different. In the first two, participants specified as 85, 85. In the third case, it is 33. Right. Second case, right, requirement for testing of each cup. But in other two, you don't need to really test all cup of this. Then reference measurement specified as sphygmomanometer with a maximum error allowed is what? Plus or minus 1 millimeter. See, we can use British Hypertension Society says we can use a mercury sphygmomanometer and so on. The passing criteria specified in all three cases are slightly different. In the first case, mean overall difference should be plus or minus 5 millimeter of Hg. Standard deviation acceptable is what? Within, it should be within 8 millimeter of Hg. In the second British Hypertension Society, it should be proportion of BP measurement overall and among patients with 5, 10, and 50 millimeter of Hg. And European Society of Hypertension, it should be 5, 10, and 15, which is same as British Hypertension Society. So validation is the key when we are designing a medical product. So this is the typical, you can say, schematic or experimental setup that we can use it for validating the design and develop a product. Now you can see here a test device, right? It's like a device under test, right? And you can see the subject. Now we can use the standard product which are available in the marketplace and right. And we can also use some kind of observer for this. You can see we can use we can check the blood pressure of different subject using the standard device which are in the marketplace like Omron or Diamond and so on. And at the same time, we can also try to measure the blood pressure using our developed product. So you can see you can have observer, we can have 100 patient, 100 observer, and then we can test this particular product. So for validation, the documents are also available in this link. I'll also share with you all. So once we have validated a particular product, there may be the chances of going something wrong. So what could go wrong, right? There may be the possibility of occurring errors in the developed product. So we should be able to document those errors and how do we really overcome those errors. So these are some of the errors that we have specified here. Sometimes user forget to connect cup with device, right? The reason could be like motor is on but no pressure rise. And the error could be like, how do we detect the pressure not increasing within the defined timeline, stop the motor and display the error code, right? So that's one error. So in this way, we can handle the errors. So testing of the product, validation of the product is equally important. And we should be able to figure out what all the possible errors which may occur in the developed product. Second could be cuff tube is occluded, motor is on, right? That's one. And steep rise in pressure during inflation. Detect steep rise in pressure and stop motor within the definite timeline and display error code. Third could be like cuff is wrapped too tight, or it could be too tight or too loose, right? Motor is on, the pressure is increasing within the inflation rate range. So we should be able to detect the inflation rate and we should be able to display the corresponding error code. Sometimes all devices need power, right? So that devices may be operated on battery. Battery voltage can be a low. So you can start up motor, voltage will load and controller will not get the required power supply. So we should have some kind of mechanism to detect the battery voltage, right, during startup, and we should test the voltage. It may be greater than 3.5 volt or it should be 3 volt and so on. If by chance the voltage is below that specified digit, it should be able to give an error. Sometimes oscillations which are detected by pressure sensors may not be detected. Motor is on, but no oscillation detected till pressure reaches to 200 millimeter of Hg, right? So detect no oscillation and display the error code. Similarly, during the inflation and deflation, the cup got unwrapped, right? So even there is a specific procedure while wrapping the cup around this. So during inflation, pressure will drop, or during deflation rate will be normal. Then we should detect the inflation rate or deflation rate. It may be normal or abnormal. So we should be able to report that code. Leakage in the cuff or tube, right? So we should be able to detect by chance if there is a leakage, the appropriate pressure will not be developed in the cuff. The motor is on, but the battery is, pressure is not increasing above a certain range. So detect inflation rate abnormality and report the error code. Sometimes difference between detected systolic and diastolic values goes below 20 millimeter of Hg, right? And if it is going below 10, it should display respective error code. So this is all about how do we really design digital blood pressure meter. So this is the device which is available in the marketplace, but this device has got some kind of issues. So there are a lot of research group, they are trying to eliminate the curve in the blood pressure measurement. The method that we have discussed is 100, you can say the method which we have used is 100 years old, but sphygmomanometer is also called as a gold standard. So in order to eliminate the curve from the blood pressure measurement, there are research group who are using a different kind of composite analysis in order to estimate the blood pressure. They are also using different learning methods to establish the relationship between the various signals like ECG, PCG, or impedance plethysmography, and so on. With this, I would like to stop here and Nishigandha, madam will continue with the discussion. The purpose of her discussion is what? Or her work is on measurement of blood pressure without using cuff. So that method provides a lot of advantages, like whenever we want to measure the blood pressure minute by minute, or second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month. So there is no method available for the measurement of blood pressure in the marketplace, which allows us to measure the blood pressure continuously. If someone has a heart attack, something goes wrong, we should be able to detect. So there is no mechanism. What is the effect of heart attack on the blood pressure? So she has worked on, Nishigandha has worked on the measurement of blood pressure without cuff. She has used a couple of databases for her research. She will discuss further in great detail about how she has used machine learning algorithm for estimation of BP and so on.
Okay, so good afternoon once again to all. I'm Nishigandha Agam, presently working as a PhD research scholar under the guidance of Dr. U.M. Chesker sir. So today I'm going to present some part of my research work that is on blood pressure estimation by using the learning methods. Okay, so very quickly I'll go through the basics of BP as sir already covered the blood pressure description very clearly and detailed. So I'll very quick cover the basics so that we'll get the understanding of what exactly the problem is and how we overcome that problem by using our proposed learning method. So, blood pressure is one of the vital parameter of the human body and can be expressed as a pressure on the blood vessel wall during the blood circulation. Now, normally blood pressure varies between the 80 by 120 mm of Hg. By applying the two forces. Now, the very first is the force exerted on the wall of the blood vessel, which is known as the systolic blood pressure, while the second one, which is the pressure generated when the heart relaxes between the beat, which is known as the diastolic. So here on I call DBP and the SBP. Okay. Now that BP goes when that BP goes beyond the normal limit, it may result in hypertension, like cardiac stroke, kidney failure, and also the dementia, which is the loss of memory. Now, most of the time, what happens when the variation caused by the factors like exercise, medicine, stress, then eating habits, it results in hypertension or we can say hypotension also, which is the leading factor for growing the danger of heart failure and the cardiovascular diseases. And therefore, which is that's why we can say that a frequent or we can say continuous BP monitoring will be of a great sense for the detection of real-time hypertension and would be beneficial. Of course, that will be beneficial for the healthcare professional and the heart disease patient also. So, what happened? Now, according to the World Health Organization, hypertension pervasiveness is just 24% and 20% in men and women. And on the age of the high BP or we can say hypertension, risk of severe health complexity is extended. That's why hypertension is considered as a critical factor from the various cardiovascular diseases. Such a deadly factor require an immediate and responsive clinical action ahead of time. So most of the ICU patient found with no symptoms at pre-hypertension stage, and that's why what happened. It show a significant changes in the physiological signal in the sense of ECG, PPG, IPG, BCG. So that's why what happened. Hypertension awareness and its control can be attained by adopting a few practices like its continuous measurement, keeping its regular record. Okay, now here I have give just a scenario where the 2 point is here, the cuff based devices and the couplet devices. Okay, now whenever we see that the blood pressure or a very first point click in mind that traditional cuff which is a wrap which is a cuff which is wrap around our arm and external pressure monitoring devices, which I think all of us is already know about that while measuring BP in hospital or with the doctor. But what exactly that device is known as? So that device is known as the sphygmomanometer. But so a very first method. So there are different method which I think sir already covered that method. So I'll just have a quick overview of that method. So the very first method is the escalatory method. This method. So where the escalation means the listening. Simple. Now in this method, stethoscope and sphygmomanometer is used to identify that cutoff sound, which is generated by occluding the brachial artery with the help of the external curve. Now, what happened? Most of the majority of the our participant known about that escalator method. Now, what happened in case of the oscillometry? In this technique, appearance and the disappearance of the oscillation held in that manometer. These oscillations are recorded during the continuous deflection, and the point of ultimate oscillation resemble to the mean heart rate picture. Okay, or we can say the mean MAB. Now, a very third method is that the volume clamping. Now, volume clamping and this fourth method tonometry, a very few people known about this method. Now, what happens in case of the volume clamping? This method measures the blood volume with the help of photoplethysmograph sensor is there and a finger BP with the help of a cup. So the a small cup is there which is wrapped around the finger, and that method is known as the volume clamping. Now, what happens in case of this fourth method, that is the tonometry? Any superficial artery gets squeezed around a flat bone and deformation of that arterial wall and measured by using the displacement sensor. That is going to happen in case of the tonometry method. So these are the we normally called as the traditional methods for by using for the measurement of blood pressure. Now, why there is a need for the curveless method, or we can say as the very well-known devices are already there, but what exactly the need is. So over the many decades, a lot of efforts have been taken by the researchers to overcome this problem of the curve-based method because if we see about the continuous monitoring of the blood pressure by 24 by 7, the which is very necessary, we can say, which is very needed for the CVD patient, cardiovascular patient, and the heart patient. So that's why the continuous monitoring is very much needed. So that is not going to possible with the help of traditional method, this curve-based method. That's why most of the researchers now shifted from the curve-based method towards the curveless measurement. So under the curveless measurement, yes, there is, as we say, that curveless. So there is no curve which is externally placed on the arm. So how we estimate or how we predict the BP? So BP gonna predicted by using the various physiological signals, which is known as simple ECG, that is the electrocardiograph, then PPG, that is a photoplethysmograph, then BCG is also there, that is the ballistocardiograph, and IPG is also there, that is the impedance plethysmograph. These are the physiological signal. By using this physiological signal, we can estimate the BP. That is going to happen in case of the curveless measurement. Okay, now how we use that physiological signal for the estimation of BP. So most of the enlightening features like this PTT, PATP, pulse wave velocity, that of this physiological signal that include this PTT is the pulse transit time, P is the pulse arrival time, then pulse wave velocity. Okay, okay. Now, many researchers have a simple mathematical modeling of this PTT and pulse wave velocity for the BP estimation. Now, what happened for cuffless BP estimation? A combination of these physiological signal like ECG and PPG signal are mostly used in the current research. Now there is a single this signal reflect a great impact on the continuous, or we can say continuous cuffless measurement. Now this ECG uh, is a worthwhile accepted tool for analyzing the BP. Now, the ECG is a supreme solution, or we can say the best solution for the heart rate variability evaluation. Now, in addition, researchers also explore this PPG to analyze the heart rate variability towards the hypertension prediction in case of the BP. Now, what exactly that PTT, as I mentioned, ECG and PPG. So the PTT, PAT, PLS velocity are the features, or we can say um, uh, the features along a time which is recorded from the ECG and PPG. So that PTT is the time taken by the pulse wave to travel along the arterial tree, okay, between the two arterial sites from the proximal to the distal point. Now, in other words, we can simply say that it's a time from ending of the systolic point of left ventricle till the peripheral artery. Okay, now in this diagram we can see the clear idea about the what exactly that PTT, which is the feature of that ECG and PPG, or many of the researchers also calculate the PTT from only the PPG signal, PPG physiological signal. This extensive research has been going on this PTT, that is the pulse transit time. Now, the evaluation of that PTT can be done using the ECG and the radial pulse at the peripheral artery. Now, what happens in case of the ECG? In ECG, detection of the R wave, which is less affected by the motion artifact, is the main advantage of ECG in this pulse transit time calculation. Okay, now many researchers have used that mathematical modeling for the pulse wave velocity to estimate the BP. This PWV is the pulse wave velocity. Now, from the pulse wave velocity, PTT can be obtained by considering the distance between the two peripheral point. Okay, now here D, what exactly the D is the vessel length. Okay, so pulse wave velocity is the measure of the arterial stiffness, and that's why that point, or we can say that feature, is used in a PP estimation from the physiological signal. Or we can say the rate at which the pressure wave move down the vessel is known as the pulse wave velocity. Okay, so by using this PTT, pulse wave velocity from the ECG, which is recorded from the ECG and PPG, and estimate the BP by using the mathematical modeling, that is the simple flow. So that's why from the accuracy and long-term monitoring point of view, this PTT based BP estimation stands at the secondary place. Okay. Why? Due to the significant impact of the arterial stiffness, individual instability, or we can say physical condition on predetermined hypothetical relation. So that's why, because of this point, this PTT approach for the BP estimation stands at the secondary place. Now, what exactly the prominent, or we can say available methods or popular methods of the cuffless BP measurement are available? So, very first method, that is the PTT, or we can say simply the PAT based. So, as I mentioned, it refers to the time it takes a pulse wave to travel between the two arterial cells, and the speed at which this arterial pressure wave travel is directly proportional to the blood pressure, or we can say PP, where it required two sensors, okay, ECG and PPG. That's why a few study also proposed with a single sensor also, but it required two space sensor apart from each other. But what happened? It required a frequent calibration, and sensors are very sensitive to motion. That is the disadvantage, or we can say that is the limitation of this method. Now, what happened in case of the second method, that is the optical sensor? Such work uses optical and pressure sensor to detect the blood flow pattern and the dynamics. Okay, so this method used in a hundred of wearable devices. but it is less effective across the population. Now, not yet that FDA approved, and still it needs calibration is still needed at some point, and some development is still required in this method that by using the optical sensors. Now, a very sorry, third method is that by using the imaging technique. Now, using this imaging technology, such as the transderence, optical imaging, BP is measured by detecting the blood flow via the smartphone camera. However, such a technique can also detect the BP through minor skin color changes. But what happens? These are extremely sensitive to motion and lighting, and obviously that are non-variable and or limited to the non-variable and or limited to the specific environment. That's why these are the limitations of this imaging technology. And in a next method, that is the radio frequency. What happened? Touch-free devices use the radio wave to measure the mechanical motion and the electromagnetic signal from the body organ and the blood flow. But what happened in this case? Uh, these methods are available with minimum published research. Before it going towards the public for the external use, and they are very sensitive to motion and very difficult to integrate into the wearable devices. So that is the limitation of these available methods, which I have enlisted over here. So here is a presentation or the schematic of the conventional learning approach. This is the conventional methods and conventional method towards this learning method. Okay, so here I mention all the techniques from mathematical model to the state of the art machine uh, learning approach, state of the art machine, which are the learning approach of the BP prediction. Now, as I mentioned, this about the conventional cuffless BP measurement. The main what is the main limitation, and what is the scenario. That's why the researchers are shifting or jumping from the conventional methods to the cuffless is that conventional methods, the main limitation is that deterioration of the accuracy and the long-term monitoring, which is a very essential point of view from the cardiac patient, or we can say hypertension prevention. Independent determine or second point is that the independent determination of the SBP and DBP. SBP is the systolic and DBP is the diastolic blood pressure. As the previous studies show more accuracy for only the DBP measurement. Now, one more point is that calibration. Calibration is very important point in healthcare monitoring and in traditional cuffless methods. So that calibration curve are very subjective specific, and that's why there is very important point. So that will be taken into consideration while the designing of the BP devices or the cuffless BP devices. Now, if we are talking about this learning approach as compared to the traditional method, learning ability reflect the significant factor of that machine learning model to establish the relation between the variables. Relation between the variable means physiological signals and the output, that is our BP. So it attains a continuous non-invasive measurement of BP. As an outcome, it provides more comfort during the continuous measurement, specifically helpful to the CVD, that is the cardiovascular disease patient. And now we can say it consists of three main steps towards attaining a new knowledge. That is accumulating a large amount of data. Okay, then extricating relevant information. The third point is proposing a best suited model for the better prediction or the uh, um, future data, or we can say future BP values. Okay, and the very lastly that we can say that this learning approach enhance the effectiveness of the patient monitoring devices towards the development of healthcare industry 4.0. So that's why most of the researchers have shifted from the traditional approach towards the learning approach of the continuous cuffless BP measurement. Okay, so here onwards, I will only focus on this learning approach throughout my presentation for the BP estimation. So here is the schematic presentation of the various machine learning approach or the machine learning apply methods that are applied for the BP estimation or the BP prediction. Now, the immense efforts have been taken by the researcher to solve the BP estimation problem by the two method, that is by using the by or through the regression and by the classification method. Now, what happened over here? Learning method continuously acquire the information from this physiological signal. Okay, and signify the relation between these input features and the input feature vector and the BP. Input features over here are the uh, physiological signal. Like here I mentioned the four physiological signal, that is the photoplethysmograph, electrocardiograph, impedance plethysmograph, and ballistocardiograph. Okay, so a few researchers only combine this PPG and ECG. Few researchers also only use that IPG or the combination of all the four physiological signals. Okay, so it depends upon the how they get the accuracy according to the learning method. Now, as it shows, along with the ECG and PPGs, this IPG and BCG are also used as an important signal for the BP estimation, because most of the only aware about the PPG and ECG. Now, uh, because of the feature, now along with the these helpful, these signals are helpful along with this feature extraction technique, because the feature extraction play a very important role in BP estimation. So the various statistical, then temporal domain, frequency domain features are derived from the this physiological signal and are used for this research study. So in few study, researcher also use directly the raw signals instead of by the instead of and omitting this feature extraction step, and directly use this signal for the by using the learning method and estimate the BP, either the prediction of the BP or the classification of the blood pressure values. So what happened if we see if we come to this learning method or the learning technique? What happened if we see the linear regression? First, the linear prediction function is used to model the relationship between this variable. Between the variable means this feature or this raw signals and the output signal. It helps to understand the changes of the dependent variable, which is the BP in this case. Okay, with the changes in one or more independent variable. Now here PPG and ECG are the independent variable. Okay, that is going to happen in case of the linear regression. Now, here I just enlisted various learning method where the researcher use for the estimation of the BP. So, same thing gonna happen with case of the support vector regression and symbol method decision team. Now, what happened in case of the a very interesting thing happened with the neural network, that here neural network demonstrate a non-linear and a complex relationship between this input and the output variable. And most of the researchers utilize a gradient descent backpropagation operation also for training this neural network. And the fit forward, a few of the researchers also use the fit forward neural network, extensively used by the researcher. Now, in neural network, we can say the NN is the best solution as compared to this rest of the methods, rest of the learning method. NN is the best solution for the time series problem. And as it comprises a feedback loop and a memory block also to store the previous information, which is very necessary in this our BP estimation case, and could be used to overcome the limitation of the feed-forward neural network. Now, likewise, the prediction of the future BP value, if anyone working on the few the researcher also working on the classification of this BP value, that is whether that values are comes under the category of hypotension or the normal tension or the hypertension. Now, so if the point come to the classification model, what happened in case of the support vector model? Linear model constructed through the non-linear mapping. This now what happened in case of the other learning method is in case of the Nebe algorithm also used for the classification of the diagnosis of the hypertension using the hypothetical database. Okay. Now many researchers have also used KNN, that is a nearest neighbor model for by calculating the F score for the hypertension or the normal and the hypotension classes, or we can say different classes of the BP, and through their research, they show the extreme results also. So, okay. So from this wide literature survey, we have focused here the very important, or we can say a genuine problem that generally focus on the BP estimation. First problem is the feature extraction, this step, and another is this learning model. It is, yes, definitely there are a lot of learning model are available, but which model is exactly or the best suited for the best value of the BP prediction? Okay. So, so here we go one by one from this step, and first we'll cover this first problem that we mentioned, that we find out that is the feature optimization problem, and then we'll see which the learning model, or we see the predictive learning model is best suited for the, or which we propose for the BP estimation. So here is the um, uh, schematic or the representation of the proposed model. Here we propose the feature optimization and model and the learning model for the best estimation of the BP, which is more, or we can say, towards the hypertension interpretability. Okay, so we'll go one by one from the feature optimization towards the learning model. Now, what happened in case of the BP optimization? Feature optimization. Feature optimization is very important step, because what happened in the learning model, training of the unnecessary and the redundant feature create a redundancy and the complexity during the training process. Okay, now if we use all the features at randomly, it may lead to the overfitting and the underfitting problem of that model, and may cause inaccurate BP estimation. Okay, now use of such irrelevant features increases the complexity of that network in determining the relationship between our variables, that is the BP and the physiological signal, and the other cardiac events also, specifically in case of hypertension. And these events are very important, or we can say these events are very important to see how that to for the continuous monitoring. Okay, now to overcome this issue, we propose a new feature optimization problem for feature optimization algorithm that help to tackle this problem. Now it this method serve an insight of the various cardiovascular events which are very responsible for the BP variation. Now, these are few, or we can say few of the features which are enlisted over here under the category of time domain, then the frequency domain, statistical feature, and the physiological features, which are already a lot of researcher used in their study. A few of them use only the time domain, few of them only use the frequency or the static, or a few of them only use a combination of these features. So but how that optimization problem can be solved, okay, that is very important. So this is method, or this solution we have proposed towards the feature optimization problem. Now, what happened in this case? Here we use only the PPG BP database. Why? Because in order to reduce the complexity which can be happening along with the which can be happen by using the ECG. So that's why I'm only use a PPG signals, a single signal to estimate the BP. Okay. Now, first we'll calculate the correlation analysis of all the features towards the BP. Now, what happens? It starts that this proposed method starts with an empty set, and then add a supplementary parameter that we can say X plus or X positive to the current feature set. Okay. Now, update the next feature subset until the termination character is not found. Okay, now that what that X positive is the feature that maximize our criteria function, or we can say that is the feature that associate with the regression performance. Okay, now that X positive are added until the feature subset of the size K contain a number of the desired feature. Okay, now, next it starts with this current population, whatever the current population we get, or the current population in the sense current a number of features. Okay, so here we called it as a population. So then the selection perform on that feature on which the individual of that current generation are selected for the next generation. Okay, now in the from this current state of the feature, this we use the selection tournament strategy to find out the best one. So to select the individual. Now here we select the key individual and run a tournament to among them. Now only the fittest one feature that is selected, and again repeat the same process. So the every feature of that feature set got a chance to select and uh, contribute towards the fittest one. Now, then the crossover and the mutation process that perform on that feature set. Now, what exactly that crossover and mutation is? Crossover is the exchange of the gene, or we can say exchange of the feature between the two chromosome, two set of feature, and the mutation. What is that exactly? The mutation is the exchange of the uh, exchange of the variable among a set of the feature established. Why? Because to establish the diversity in that population or that feature set. Here we call the feature set as a population. Okay. Now, um, and same the process is continued till our termination criteria met, and at the end of this crossover and mutation, we get an optimal feature set which is required for our training for our learning model. Now, that going to happen in case of the proposed method, which is the which we propose for the feature optimization problem. Now, moving towards the learning model, what happened? Now, there are still some shortcoming of the existing BP learning model. So, which is that problem is that is a lack on using the previous information which is needed to estimate the next data, or we can say the future data. Okay, now then existing curveless BP measuring method still show, okay, whatever it still show the inadequacy of the model that utilizes the long-term dependency. Here I focus that point. The long-term dependency is very important in the BP dynamic. Okay, and it come up with the outcome of the recurrent calibration. Now, in most of the BP model, okay, now in most of the PP model, that redundant feature affect the model performance by rising the complexity of the network, and we are not here. We have to consider that problem to reduce the complexity of the network. So with that, so we'll get the better output or the better BP values. And a computational burden of that model is also rises because of the training of the redundant features. Now, to overcome these main shortages, proposed model, there is whatever the proposed so the here a land model is proposed. So to overcome these shortages, this proposed model assists the current, okay, as well as the previous uh, status of the cardiovascular events, because the previous status of the cardiovascular is very important, because the from the cardiovascular disease patient, because their continuous monitoring is very much important, that which parameter is get increases that directly affect the pp, which result in the hypertension and the hypo condition of that patient. And it also assists in stationize the model while learning that model. So there's 2 points are very important, that the long-term monitoring and stationizing of that model. So by looking for these two problem, we propose a land model to estimate the bp. Now here I um, here I show you the how it exactly work by using that LSTM network. So the main network is our in our proposed model is the LSTM, that is the long short-term monitoring network. Now, this LSTM used as a variation of the recurrent neural network that provide a solution to the vanishing gradient problem. Now, what happened in case, or how it better than the recurrent neural network, that it has a that LSTM has a gate structure. Okay, now that in that gate structure, it has a three gates, that is the forget gate, input gate, and the output gate. Now, every gate work with the activation function. Okay, here I mentioned this activation function L1 to L5, which is the sigmoid and the tanh function. Now we'll see one by one gate, or we'll see one by one point that cover how that gate structure can be used, or that can overcome the limitation of the traditional neural network. Okay, now um, okay, what happened at the gate? Now, what happened at the each gate? Forget gate. First, we'll see about the forget gate. Primary purpose is to eliminate the redundant data from the cell state. Okay. Now, where this L1 activation function is responsible for deciding which information is required and what to discard. Okay, this is very important gate in that gate structure. Now, the second gate is the input gate. Now, what happened at the input gate? It look at the addition of the input information instead of the redundant data. Okay, so here L2 and L3, the current input gate and the previous hidden input gate, redundant data that concerning for filtering all the input information discarded from the previous hidden state and this input vector. Okay, now what happened in case of this output gate? Finally, at the output gate, this L4 activation function will decide what part of the cell state is needed for the output. Okay, now in terms of BP, in terms of the blood pressure, simply how we can summarize this gate structure. So, gate or what kind of information is discarded and what kind of information need to be remind and carry forward for the estimation. So, in case of the BP, we can say that the forget input and output gate of this LSTM assist in removing the redundant data. So what is the redundant data in case of the BP? So the BP value from the past moment, and but to remember the information about the stiffness of the artery, which is a very important feature, and the current status of the blood vessel to estimate the BP. So that is a very important information that need to be used, or that to be used for training purpose, which is gonna pass by using that gate structure. Now, okay, so that is all combined over here, that what kind of data should be forgot, what kind of data should be passed, and here that YT dash is our BP value. Okay, now the second part of our part of this proposed model, that is the ARIMA, that is the auto regressive integrated moving average. Okay, so that is our the second part of the network. Now, it most commonly used model in the time series, that ARIMA model, for the analysis that depend on the statistical modeling. So, this equation represent this predicted BP. So, this is the main predictor of our BP, where this phi is the finite set of parameter determined by the linear regression, and then the theta is the intercept. Here, mu is the mean, and here, YT dash is the value of the BP which is we receive from this LSTM network. Okay, and what is that P and Q represent? So here P is the order of the AI part, that is the auto regression part of this ARIMA model, which is the number of lag. Okay, so the what is that P stands to use the number of lags from this value from this equation, and what is that Q stand? Q is the order of the MA, that is the moving average, order of the moving average, and what it stands for? It calculates the number of lag forecast error. Okay, so this number of lag and number of lag forecast error are used by this ARIMA network or the ARIMA model. And what is that? E is the error associated with the linear regression. So these points are used, or this that number of lag and number of lag forecast error to by the ARIMA model to estimate our predicted BP. Here, the BP value at time t can be obtained. This at time t can be obtained by the past value. This is the past values, and the previous error. This is the previous error that represent the moving average differences by the order of the Q. Okay, so uh, um, Okay, so simply we can say that we propose a hybrid structure of the LSTM and the ARIMA to our BP estimation problem, which overcome the limitation of the uh, our BP estimation problem uh, by looking forward the long-term monitoring or the long-term dependency. That is the main problem that we find out. Now, for the purpose for the estimation, we use the database that is the very well-known database we have used. That is the MIMIC database. So MIMIC is the FusionNet multi-parameter intelligent monitoring in intensive care. Okay, so that database is widely used for the PP estimation, then by using the to find out the various deformation from ECG, PPG, few ICG and BCG is also a database is also available on that MIMIC database. So that is very useful database in healthcare monitoring. So our proposed study uses the MIMIC, that is FusionNet multi-parameter intelligent monitoring database, for the source of only BPG and BP. Okay. Now this is extensively ICU database accumulated for a time frame of more than 10 years. So that's why we use that database in our model. Now proposed method has been assessed on 2780 data files we have used here of the PPG and BP. So once we have the database, we use that database by our evaluate that database by using our proposed model, and for the validity, we have used here the statistical analysis. We have used the two parameter, that is the mean absolute error and the root mean square error, which is the very widely used a parameter from the statistical analysis of the proposed method, normally utilized for performance evaluation. So the proposed model has been evaluated. Okay, here from this point, we can say that this YT is the estimated value, and YT cap is estimated value of that BP, and YT is the true value of the BP, ground truth value. Okay, so the uh, so the proposed model has been evaluated using the AMI, which is the American Association for the Advancement of the Medical Instrumentation Standard. And here are the result that the proposed model, our land model, along with that feature optimization, that is boosted prediction accuracy with the statistical analysis parameter, or we can say evaluation parameter, with 1.21 and 1.07 for the SPP. This is the error we get from the predicted and the true values of that SBP and DBP. And the experimental result implies that the performance of this proposed model outperform with the currently or the existing method which the researcher used by using that ANN and fit formula for the continuous monitoring. Now, we can see here the regression and the blood almond plot, which is normally used or normally by the researcher to show the performance between the true and the estimated value. So we can see that the very less error we have here, we estimated over here by using our proposed model. Now from this plot, we have also we have also show the comparison of our model with the left with the existing model by using that where they use NNN, then with formal neural network, and simple LSTM model is also used for the BPA estimation. So our hybrid model or the proposed model show the better accuracy in case of the evaluation performance. Okay. Uh, Fancy. So this is all about the proposed model. Now here we have also evaluated our proposed model for the two basic condition of the blood pressure, that is the hypertension and hypotension, because that the evaluation of that proposed model for these two conditions are very important, because simply the estimation of BP is not a specific solution in case of the healthcare monitoring. We have to consider this or the this critical fact, this critical a scenario that is that can happen in case of the hypotension and hypertension condition. So that's why we have also evaluated our proposed model in for both this condition, hypertension and hypotension. Now, as I mentioned earlier also, that whenever BP falls beyond the limit, it results in hypertension and hypotension. Now, what happened at the hypertension case? It is a long-term condition of the BP, and in which a circulating blood exert a higher pressure on that blood vessel. Now it is one of the severe threat for the heart disease and stroke, renal failure, and the other healthcare complications. So that's why there is very important to have a continuous monitoring or continuous measurement of the hypertension along with the normal BP. So that's why it requires an immediate clinical action ahead of time. Prevention of this hypertension in early stage is a very most effective and is very needed mean for reducing the CVD development. CVD here is the cardiovascular disease development. So here and what happened in case of the second situation of this BP, that is the hypotension, that it's definitely it's a life-threatening condition because it's appear likewise the hypertension also. Its appearance for a longer duration can lead to a multiple organ damages, and that's why hypertension condition we also have to be considered along with the hypertension situation. Now, it's also need to evaluate the uncertainties of the hemodynamic events ahead of time in case of the hypotension. Continuous monitoring of this hemodynamic event are very important if we are looking for the hypotension condition or the low BP situation. If we have a continuous monitoring of the hemodynamic parameter, we can accurately or we can have a watch for the hypertension situation if it comes to any person or any patient. Now, for this evaluation of the both the condition of the BP, we have used here the um, uh, uh, same database, mimic database. So here, but because of the unavailability of this, both this hypertension database is available on the mimic, but have a limited database for the hypotension. So that's why only the 418 records are available for the both the situation of the BP. So that's why we are using that 418 record from the mimic database. And depending on the definition of that hypertension and the hypertension, so if we consider the situation hypertension when the SBP, that is the systolic blood pressure, falls with the 160 and 200 mmHg, and in case of the diastolic we have considered the 100 to 114 mmHg range for the hypertension. And in case of the in case of the hypotension, SBP when it falls in case of in 60 to 90 mmHg, and when DBP falls in 40 to 60 range, that we have considered the for the hypotension evolution. So these are the results we get. So here is the regression and the bland animal plot for this plot it's only for the hypertension patient. Okay, so from this also we get a better result. So uh, this kind of result or this kind of error we get, very less error we get by our proposed model in case of the hypertension. Um, Okay, so here I mentioned the normal BP and the hypertension values also for the MA and RMSE. Now, in this hypotension, this is the plot for regression and the blood animal plots in case of the hypotension. And in case of the hypotension, we also get results, but the hypertension with our proposed model, we get a better result for the hypertension as compared to the hypotension. Okay. Um, Okay, so this is all about the evolution of our proposed model in case of both the situation, that is the low BP, that is the hypotension, and the higher BP, that is the hypertension. Now, this so what is the highlight, or we can say what are the points, or what are the important or point from our proposed model, that is the evolution of hypertensive and hypotensive condition along with the normal BP that we have evaluated by using proposed model. Then a significant performance towards the hypertension interpretability that we get from our proposed model. Then, feature optimization methods serve insight of the various cardiovascular events which are responsible for the BP variation that we get from the that we understand from the feature optimization method which we have proposed, and the usefulness of this application, which what by the proposed method is that for the BP estimation from the medical perspective, and of course, and definitely a comparison is there for whenever we propose a new method. So the comparison of this proposed method with the state of the art method we have shown in our publication, and so through that we can show or we can find out the better result as compared with the state of the art method. So, uh, this is all about the proposed work which we have proposed which we have proposed under the learning method along with the feature optimization for the BP estimation. Okay, so these are the few references we have used. Okay, so all this point is all about the proposed work for the BP estimation. So along with the ECG and PPG, I'd also like to uh, I'll discuss the one more parameter, that is the IPG, that is the impedance plethysmography parameter that I'd like to share with you all, or I'd like to discuss with you all for definitely for the BP estimation. Okay, so here I'd like to discuss with you the another important physiological parameter, that is the impedance plethysmograph for the BP estimation. A very few or the less research is find out which using the IPG signal. Most of the researchers have used ECG and the PPG towards the BP estimation, but that is uh, as also along with the ECG and PPG, this impedance plethysmograph is also a very important, or we can say very informative physiological variable or physiological point, physiological signal that give a better BP estimation also. So what happened in case in impedance plethysmograph is a method for determining the tissue volume changes in a body, now, which is associated with the measurement of this electrical impedance, okay, at the body surface. Now, this impedance measurement is made by introducing electric current in the frequency range of 20 to 100 kilohertz and measuring the corresponding voltage. Okay, now to eliminate the effect of the electrode, a separate electrode pair is used or introduced for the current and the voltage. Okay, now in this case, outer electrode pair, if we see, the outer electrode pair is used for the current introduction, whereas the voltage is measured across the inner electrode pair. Okay, now this impedance usually measure from the three location. First location is the thorax, that is also known as the impedance cardiography. Another two are the limb location. Now, what happened in case of the thorax? At the thorax region, impedance is measured by the four band electrode. Okay. Now, in the outer pair, one electrode is placed around the abdomen and the other around over the upper part of the neck. Now, whereas in the inner electrode pair, one is placed around the thorax while the other is placed around the lower part of the neck. Okay, that is going to happen in case of the thorax impedance, or we can say ICG. Now, what happened in case of the arm? In case of the limb impedance measurement, outer electrode pair and the left electrode are placed at a certain distance apart from each other for recording the current as well as the voltage signal. Okay, so this is about, or this is the general or the general idea about the impedance plethysmography signal, or this is one of the physiological variable which is used for the BP estimation. So this impedance, this simply we can say the IPG. So the IPG, that variable or that physiological signal can be used to detect the various skin cancer, also in detecting the arterial and the venous disease. It used to measure definitely the pulse transit time, which we already discussed in the BP estimation point in the last presentation. Then velocity and also the heart rate measurement. Now, it's much potential that IPG has much potential for non-invasive, continuous, and long-term vital sign monitoring. This point is very important. That is a long-term vital monitoring. So that's why these are the important points, or the or we can say punch point from the IPG physiological signal, because most of the people don't or the less aware, and they have less aware about the IPG signal as compared to the ECG and the PPG. Now, what happened in case of the IPG here, in our work we have used the unsupervised learning of that IPG signal for the towards the BP. So this technique has gained much attention in the past few years among the researchers. Now, what happened? However, the issues like the weak pulse, wave signal, then the complicated hardware, electrode placement, and low frequency. Because of this point, this signal make this technique a little complicated to use. Okay, so in critically ill patients, specifically in cardiac patient, it is very difficult for the medical practitioner to continuously monitor that massive database of that patient. Okay, so that one happen and find out the complex pattern of that physiological data. This is very critical task. So in this case, so that's why we have think that the unsupervised learning or unsupervised learning of that IPG signal, how it contribute towards the BP estimation. So IPG present here a new approach to analyze various hidden pattern of the cardiac cycle, because that is very important. To understand the various cardio or the hemodynamic parameter for the continuous estimation of continuous measurement, because that are contribute towards the hypotension. Okay, so now to cover the gap from the literature, like the very main limitation is that the weak signal, complicated hardware, low frequency signal. We have developed a low cost and easy hardware system for that acquisition of the IPG signal, or simply the IPG analysis. And related to the cardiac cycle, analyze cardiac hemodynamic parameter also through that unsupervised learning of that IPG signal. That is the main point towards our proposed model. Now, for the or we can say in this technique, electrode placement is very essential for the acquisition of that IPG signal. So in the proposed method, we have used the four ECG cables simple for the acquisition of the signal, and then disposable surface electrode have been chosen to get the distortion free signal to reduce the content impedance of that skin and the electrode. Okay, now, so this kind of the IPD signal we have recorded from the through the experimentation or the experimental setup. So now here the experiment has been performed on the 10 healthy subjects in a multi-day period, and in our lab, in our biomedical lab, and IPG signal has been recorded for 8 minutes at a resting state. So for that, the outer electrode have placed 8 centimeter apart for recording the data through which the current has been injected. Okay, now into the forearm, whereas inner electrode have placed, because two electrodes we have placed in case of the ejection of the current and the reading of the voltage. So the inner electrode have placed a 3 centimeter apart and shows the acquisition of that voltage signal. Now, while recording the signal, each subject is relaxed in a chair and set the arm on the desk. Okay, so this is the input data we have. Now, what will be the flow of this model is that from the recorded IPG signal, we select the 9 basic feature of the recorded IPG. Okay, these are the 9 basic feature we have recorded for the IPG database. And our flow of this, the proposed model is like recording of the IPG signal with our develop real-time model, then find out its feature, learn those feature, and pursue various cardiac event. That will be the flow of this model, the proposed method. Now, what that IPG peak is, it is the amplitude of the PPG. PPG foot is just the foot point. There's a peak point and the foot point from this acquire IPG signal. Then pi is the pulse interval, or we can say simply the distance between the beginning point and the end of the IPG curve. Then a very important features we have recorded over here, that is the first and the second derivative. This derivative function or the derivative feature contribute towards the estimation of the cardiac parameter, and more contribute towards the estimation of the cardiac parameter. That's why we have used this feature in our feature set. This pi is the first interval of the first derivative and the second derivative. Now, in our model, we have used the three clustering methods, that is the k-mean, then the DB-scan, and the agglomerate clustering method for clustering our database uh, from the, or we can say for the, classify, or we can see the looking forward for the cardiac or the hemodynamic parameter. Okay, so the very first clustering method is that the k-mean. K-mean is one of the simplest and very all our participants know, most of the participants know about what on how exactly that K-mean is work. So the most popular clustering algorithm used for the partitioning the data. Now, what happened in that? If we consider that IPG database like the X1, feature matrix X1 to XT, T is the recorded data point. So the K mean direct to partition the data at T data point in a K cluster based on the similarity. So the similarity is very important over here. Then including distance between a data point Xi and cluster, this cluster center is used to calculate the similarity. Assign Assign each input point to that Xi to the cluster center with a minimal distance from the cluster center. Then re-evaluate the cluster center again with the mean of the data point in that cluster. That's gonna happen in case of the k-mean. Now, what happened in case of the DB scan? DB scan is simply the density-based partial clustering of the application. Now, what happened in case of the DB scan for our IPG database? It is a density-based clustering algorithm. Okay, and we can see that compared with the other clustering algorithm, present number of cluster is not required criteria over here in case of the DB scan. So this algorithm find a random shaped cluster very well, which is suited for the clustering of the unstructured impedance data. Now, moreover, the identification of that outlier is one of the main advantage of this DB scan as compared to the other method. Now here, DB scan group the data point based on the two main parameter over here, that is the epsilon, that is the minimum point, and the minimum point, that is the number of dimension D in the data set. Okay, so in this two condition, if that found that minimum point is less than the neighborhood function, then clustering process start. Else what happen? Data point will be marked as a node simply. Now, if a data point that find, for example, xi is the data point is accounted as a part of the cluster, then all the point within that neighborhood function belong to the same cluster. Then again for the next data point, again that process get repeated until the main cluster is found. Okay, in case of the third clustering method, that is the agglomerative, the advantage of this method is that output of this cluster is more informative, and that differentiate this method from the other method with the unstructured set of cluster, because our IPG database in structure points we have. So that's why it is very effective for our database. Now, in this work, we have used a bottom-up approach. Okay, so the theoretically top-up approach and bottom-up approach are there. So we have used in our proposed model the bottom-up approach of that agglomerative clustering. So this method is based on the similarity information. Okay, so the computer now each data point is initially considered as a single cluster. That won't happen in case of the agglomerative, and then move further by combining the most similar cluster nearby that data point. So this method initiate with the individual data point from the dataset and initialize the own cluster key. Okay. Now, um, oh, clustered pair with the maximum similarity has combined accordingly to the distance method between the observed data point, whatever the data point are there. So at each time step, two cluster, that is the Ci and Cj, for example, we mentioning over here, are merged and recomputed the distance matrix to find the nearest cluster pair. So that step is again repeated till only one cluster remain. As it starts with the one cluster for one data point, so it combine and finalize the only one cluster is remaining. So that can happen in case of the agglomerative. So as an output of this clustering technique, these figures show a cluster of notches measured from the first derivative impedance signal, which was considered as a feature of this IPG signal while training that data. Now, this method cluster uh, the process IPD signal, which we process that from the because we have recorded the raw IPD signal from our hardware into the five clusters. What other clusters are? Arterial contraction, closure of tricuspid wall, closure of the aortic wall. Then the third one is the closure of the pulmonary wall, and fifth one is the heart sound. So this kind of clusters are there. How we knows that? Because it shows from the first and the second, or simply the derivatives from the IPG signal. So this clustering of the unstructured impedance wave are referred specifically for timing the characteristics of the cardiac cycle. Okay, and suggests the appearance of the various cardiac event for the continuous monitoring. Whatever the results we get, though the obtained cardiac events are very well clustered, accurate timing of this event has been confirmed if we are using this database in real time in hospital. Those events has been confirmed after only a physician inspection, because it's a very critical point, or the critical factor are there, as there is a closure and opening of the walls of that heart. Now, after clustering this data set, unsupervised training of that impedance curve, this how it validates. So the slot analysis has been performed or has been used to measure the accuracy of this clustering technique. So this slot analysis validate the working of our proposed method, whatever we propose by using the different clustering method, and it clear that the optimum number of cluster is 5 over here. Okay, and 5 cluster we find out. So the Silhouette square is normally used for clustering the data. So now what happened, or how we validate our data point, or validate our IPG database, clustering of our IPG database. So from the statistical analysis, we have used two indexes, two validity indices we have used, that is the Dunn index and the DB index. That is very important validation or the evaluation performance factor. Aim of this Dunn index is that aim of this zone index is to identify the set of the cluster that are compact with a small variance between the member of that cluster. Okay, now how it validates? Higher the Dawn index, better is our clustering. Okay, so from this equation, we can say that this C and Cj is the inter distance, okay, inter-cluster distance, okay, and this Ck here is the Ck is the intra-cluster distance, okay. Now, in case of the DB index, how we validate? How lower the DB index value, better is the clustering. That won't happen in case of the DB index. So from this table, we can notice that the proposed method shows the better result for the agglomerative method for clustering our IPG database, which shows lower DB lower DB index for the optimal number of the K cluster. And it's clear that we are getting the best performance by using that clustering method as compared to the K-mean and DB scan with a higher Dunn validity index. So these tables now summarize the cluster validity indices obtained from the various clustering method, that is the agglomerative, K-mean, and the DB scan. clustering of our IPG database, which we recorded by our developed experimental or developed proposed method. Okay, so that was all about the clustering of whatever the data we have or whatever the IPG data we have. Now, it's time for to evaluate the hemodynamic parameter, or we can say the cardiac uh, factor, or the cardiac parameter. So that plethysmography waveform, we can say simple that the IPG waveform is influenced by the pressure waveform, okay, which generate flow and is related to the blood vessel movement. So in investigating the blood vessel movement, this plethysmograph wave, its first and second derivative was applied to consider the flow pressure relationship between that. So, in this case, derivative reflect the vessel wall movement and computation of the various arterial properties. And definitely from this signal, that IPD signal, it provides an insight of arterial stiffness and hemodynamic characteristics. Okay, now it's the evolution of hemodynamic parameter means the here we focus on the stroke volume. But what exactly that stroke volume is? It is a flow-based hemodynamic parameter. Okay, a non-invasive method of impedance changes the measurement. It is widely recognized for the computing the cardiac function. Okay, so that's why we have used or we have focused the stroke volume hemodynamic parameter. Now, in cardiovascular system, changes in the heart rate, okay, and the stroke volume affect the BP. That's why we are focusing over here in the stroke volume. Okay, once we estimate the stroke volume, definitely we'll get the changes in the BP. Stroke volume is the volume of a blood pump out of the left ventricle. Okay, it is one of the parameter derived from the impedance changes along with the pre-ejection period, or simply we can say that PEP. Most of the participants know about that. What exactly that PEP is, the pre-ejection period, and the left ventricular ejection time. Now, a conventional method for the conventional method, or we can just say that why we are doing this learning method, as there are conventional methods are there for the stroke volume measurement. So what happened in case of the conventional method? Pulse contact analysis is there as a conventional method to compute the stroke volume from the pressure measurement, but this transformation prone to error in non-invasive measurement. So, in such cases, a more generalized model should require to improve the performance of that model. And moreover, learning model is best suited for the various scenario, that is without manual extraction of that feature, because from IPG signal we have a very it is less in amplitude, so very critical factors are there, so the learning model is more effective as compared to the conventional method. So what is our proposed methodology is, so to overcome this gap or the limitation of this traditional method, we propose a new method of tracking that stroke volume through a learning model. Okay, so now using that impedance changes definitely, but as an input we have a very small sample size, because that whatever the proposed hardware is there, we recorded on a very limited database from our proposed hardware because of the that COVID situation. So we have to that is not sufficient, that small database is not sufficient for the better analysis or to predict the our hemodynamic parameters. So that's why we have proposed over here a new method that increases or to have or to generate a larger or the sufficient database which is required for the learning model. So to address this problem caused by the small sample of the feature, we have used a bootstrap technique because a small sample causes a serious disadvantage, as the overfitting may be there on using a machine learning technique. The bootstrap method is a computer intensive method to improve the accuracy of that estimate from a small number of the measurement. Okay, so once we have that IPT signal from our hardware, Then the input features are here. We have only focuses on the four feature, which I have. Oh, sorry. From this enlisted all this feature, we have only used the four feature. Okay, yes, four feature we have used that to show better or that show uh, informative from the IPG signal. So that is the IPGP foot and first and the second derivative. So in this case, suppose uh, suppose x1 to xn is the set of the feature, that the four feature, then used as an input feature vector. Then we calculate its mean and standard deviation. Okay. Now for sampling, we generate B sample with a size of 4. So to replicate B times, that is here we set B as a beta as a 50 set. Now the sufficient feature samples are used to learn a complex relationship between the artificial feature and the target stroke volume. So we computed the average of all the measurement in X star. Oh, and that's what I mentioned over here, that X star. Now, wha- from the bootstrap technique, whatever the features we get, how we validate that artificial features. So here we need to evaluate that consistency and convergence of that artificial features, which is acquired by the bootstrap technique. So this figure, this is the cumulative distributive function. This figure shows the CDF of the artificial and the original features. So here the red one shows the artificial feature and the blue one shows the um, uh, uh, original feature, and this lower dotted line is the lower confidence bound and upper confidence bound. So from this graph we can say our what are the artificial features that shows the significance nearer to the original features, that is for the feature 1, feature 2, feature 3 and feature 4. So as we use only the 4 feature for this evaluation. Okay, so here we calculate the mean and the standard deviation from these features, and what the results show from the table, we confirm that from this table, we confirm that a standard error obtained from this parameter bootstrap method are more closely or closely approximate to the mean. So this technique can be used as a good generator for increasing the number of sample. If in a case we have a smaller database, so bootstrap technique can be used to create an artificial features to increase that database, because the very sufficient or the large database is required according to the whatever the proposed learning model is there. So once our input data is ready from this, once our input data is ready, a um, larger database, we fit that into a regression model, and to understand the relationship between our impedance changes, which is our input data, and the stroke volume, which is our output. Okay? Which is one of the cardiac function. Now that input vector was composed of that impedance data, and the response variable was composed of the stroke volume. Okay. Then we applied a model, simple the learning model, regression model to predict the systolic volume. And here the proposed model provide that graph shows the proposed model provide a good performance. We can say that very because of the very low same evaluation parameter we have used over here, that is the mean absolute error and the root mean square error, and it show a very less error as compared to the um, other or the existing one. So this is our okay. So that error is the 2.29 and 2.07 is the RMSE and MAE, which we have obtained by our proposed model for the estimation of the stroke volume. And This is the main highlight, or we can say main conclusion of that proposed method is that we propose a new mean of impedance plethysmography for perceiving the various cardiac events. Okay, as we mentioned, systolic volume is one of the very important cardiac events towards the estimation of the BP, and it show a potential mean in diagnosis a complex structure of that unlevel and impedance data towards the cardiac event. So optimum clustering of that bioimpedance can suggest evolution of the other healthcare variable also, like the blood pressure and respiration rate. Blood pressure I have already mentioned, but for the estimation of the respiration rate also, this proposed method can contribute uh, along with the other physiological signals. Like, for example, if we use ECG and PPG, other this other physiological signal along with the IPG, it also shows. It may show better results for the estimation of the blood pressure and the respiration rate. So we can consider this. This is our that can be our future work for the estimation of the respiration rate. So this was all about our proposed work, which mainly focus on the analysis of our different physiological signal towards the continuous and cuffless BP measurement.